Hello my friends, family, esteemed colleagues. This video I'm going to explain and answer many questions directly my way which concern the knowledge that I'm sharing. I'm always, very often being asked, well, where can I see the studies on what you are talking about? How do I know that this is true? Where can I read this? What books are you using to get to this knowledge? Well, if you follow my work, and if you just listen to few videos of mine or read few articles, you are going to notice that information that I share there, some of that information you probably didn't hear or see anywhere else. So how do I know, and why can I be so convinced that things are the way as I explain them to be? So let me give you a little in on how did I go about this. Well, even during my study, when I was young, I noticed that certain things did not make sense. One of them was when learning about the Krebs cycle, and as a vet it was on animal cells, same like a human. Actually, we were using books, physiology from a medical center. So it's the same stuff. And the professor is explaining how sugar is being converted into adenosine triphosphate. And in a small writing down below the picture of the cycle, it was like, and the cell can also do the same cycle using fat. And to me it was like, every time I hear something that makes sense, it's like a huge alarm. Because somehow I'm a slow reader, because I analyze every, not sentence, but every word. And sometimes I even go backwards. I go and reread some things just to make sure that I understand it correctly. And I asked, Professor, well, why are we learning the Krebs cycles on sugar when animals do not have any sugar storage? But we have a fat storage, and the same cycle runs on fat, so why is not fat being used? And I just saw this blank face, mouth opened, like I have discovered Africa. But then nothing was said about it. My question was ignored. And somehow I could never make good score on my exams. And exams are not written. They were all direct examination. So it's not something that I have circled wrongly. This stuff doesn't exist in Europe. This is a US baloney, you know. Circle the correct answers. It was all basically drill, 3-4 hour drill, one-on-one. Those are exams that we had in Yugoslavia, Croatia now. So somehow I could not score better things, even though I answer all the things, but sometimes even edit something that I have read elsewhere, not in those books that were given to me, because sometimes I could not get the correct book, so I just borrowed whatever was interesting and had something to do with it. So I have noticed already during studying that things are fishy. And then once when I finished studying, then actually even during study, I forgot his name, but there was a great professor. He was a professor of surgery actually, but he was very much into parasitology as well. And he held a cathedra in Zagreb University of veterinary school, and also somewhere in Germany. So he traveled. And he showed us. We had 2 donkeys that both had warts. And he cut off wart from one of the donkey, then he smashed it, mixed it a little bit with formaldehyde to attenuate it, and then put it subcutaneously into both donkeys. Now the donkey with attenuated wart that came from this donkey, well, he actually healed. The wart started falling off, but not from the other one. And basically, professor said, well, this is your example that vaccines cannot work. It was homeopathy. Well, I did not think much about it then. Now I understand completely. But then, after working already as a vet, and then with my brother joining him into proving or discovering what is the cause of impotence in young men, mild erections, loss of erection. And we have discovered it's a blood circulation. Neither did he or I knew how to fix it, and even today you will be heartfelt and broken to find somebody that understands how to heal circulation. I explained it, but again, how did I get to the information which is not written anywhere else? Well, because of my experiences. And then again, I was practicing many things that I have read in the Bible and New Testament about manifestation, about faith. And started combining those two, studying and manifestation. But then, when I discovered that the knowledge we are given in a medical school is really not helping us to heal anything, that we are basically just putting patches over the problems, symptomatically treating problem which never goes away. I decided to look into it. Why? Why don't we learn how to heal? What is the problem? And we are all trained to learn from books and then reading studies. Well, but what happens if you read books? Well, you are reading someone else's opinion. I have seen it. If you are reading study, well, I understood already by then enough. I understood that whenever you are making experiment and something happens during the experiment that you did not expect, Well, this is what they call then preliminary study. And then they go in a back room and they try to see how they can cash it. Not how they can utilize it to help to resolve the problem, but how to make money on it. And then when they find it, well, they label it as a final study. And this is what is being then promoted. So for me to find the answer, I knew I cannot look at any journals, any medical journals, any scientific journals, because it's all corrupted. And if I would go and look at what some other people think, well, I would be trapped in the same nonsense as they are. So I understood that the only way is to observe nature, because it has been less compromised, and then figure out where the problem is, why the animals in nature do not have chronic problems and humans do, and domestic animals as well. And it was not difficult to find that it is the diet. But then it's not only the diet, it's also the stress. As far as human goes, and also animals, they may suffer from stress. Dogs do. So I had to find more answers. Now, doing it as we are trained by back engineering, so you go to the finished product and now start chipping it away and try to see how it works. Well, this is nonsense, because it's not a car, it's not a flying object, it's a body. And our bodies, every cell has hundred thousands, if not billions, of chemical reactions of every second. You want to make sense of it? I wish you luck. So it's easier to go the other way. Let's go to the base where it all starts. This is the quantum field. And let's understand what is a quantum field and how things occur from quantum aspect. And very quickly you will realize that there are no particles. They only exist when we create them because we need them to manifest. But other than that, they don't exist. In quantum field, they don't exist. So, again, going and reading about it, well, I would just be another parrot repeating somebody else's opinions. And this is what basically we do. This is why you go on the internet and you start checking, let's say, about garlic. And you can open thousands and thousands of these videos and articles from these so-called nutritionists, these experts in nutrition, and wannabe nutritionists. Everybody wants to make buck. So they just read and copy from each other and repeat the same nonsense. And you have million sites all saying, well, garlic is fabulous. It's a natural antibiotic. Well, it's not antibiotic at all. But they all repeat it. But nobody tells you that it's neurotoxic. Well, how come? Well, because this is not what people write. And since everybody just copies the other guy, they just make their spiel, change a little bit wording, make themselves more knowledgeable by spewing some nonsense, adding to the soup. But basically there is nothing new there. And it's all misleading. So if I'm going to go and read first to make my opinion, to read what other people say, well, I would be doing the same damn thing. And to me that was not good enough, because I witnessed learning lies through official indoctrination center called university or schools. So the only way to avoid it is not to read any of it. Basically, go within, you focus on what you want to know, and whenever you hit a wall, information is missing, well, information is given to you, and is given to you from the source, either directly, suddenly ideas spark out. But usually the ideas, because the truth is so drastically different from what we are being told that the truth is, it's hard to believe it. So the idea comes and your original reaction always is, can't be. And we tend to discard it. Well, I would not discard it, but I would continue thinking, and then I would not want to talk about it because I was not sure. And if I could make experiment, fine, but sometimes I couldn't. When it dawned to me that the only way that cell can increase the level of potassium is if it produces it, because it cannot absorb it without push. And then if it is in the blood through inflammation, maybe through the push, maybe some potassium would go in. But how can then accumulate so much potassium that it has more potassium that is in blood? If it's coming from a blood, this is impossibility. That's just rational thinking. So idea came that cell is making it through cold fusion. But how can I talk about this nonsense that I cannot prove? And I don't know which experiment, how to conduct experiment to prove it, and I don't even have lab. And when a situation like this occurred, well, I would open a video to watch some movie, and somehow by mistake, mistakes don't happen, I decide to open some video, and in that video it just shows how now some of the organizations are using algae to create a biofuel, and they are using the principle of cold fusion, which is exactly what I was being told when I was manifesting. And then I was also shown in the video, it was mentioned that about this cold fusion, cellular cold fusion, production of potassium, that two scientists proved it at the same time. One was a French scientist, one was Japanese. So then it gave me more confidence. Okay, so I'm not the only lunatic that is going to put the claim out. And like this happened often. After I was already experimenting with salt and drinking seawater, and start even giving little lessons to people, then I would receive in the email, "Wow, Darko, you must know about this and this," like Rene Quinton. I didn't know about him. So they sent me an article. Then I read, I said, wow, okay, so I'm not the only lunatic that thinks that salt is actually good, that seawater is actually medicine. And getting to know other information about the same subject that come from different people, but not from a main scientific attila, my confidence was building. It is not easy to say something that is contrary to the science that we are being told because of the system. We are never asked our opinion. We are always just being told, look, this is a professor. He knows everything. And you have to memorize what he says or what is in those books. And then, if you can repeat it, you are an excellent student. More mistakes you do, you are lesser student. Your opinion is worth nothing. Who are you? They are experts. When I realized that atoms do not exist, that time is not what we are being told, that this time warp of Einstein is pure nonsense. Well, I had to say that. Now, Einstein was an idiot. The only scientist from that time that I value is actually Nikola Tesla. Not even Edison. Edison to me is sadistic egalomaniac, killing animals and elephants just to prove that it is safer to work with direct current than indirect current. So now the object of science that I'm involved in is not only our health, it is also our mind, manifestation, because this is all the same package. We cannot break science in cubicles and then isolate ourselves. No, we only learn from this cubicle because it's all connected, because it's all consciousness. You cannot be physicist if you don't understand consciousness. Because again, Newtonian physics is also bullshit. Things are not the way as we are being told. In minor instances, we can use some of it in our own manifestation. But to get to the truth, you cannot use that physics. You have to go into quantum field. And then you will start realizing that atoms, electrons, protons, neutrons, this is a pigment of our imagination. None of it actually works the way as we are being told. How would I get to this knowledge? Well, it's not written anywhere. And this is how we are supposed to learn. We are not supposed to learn from books. Yes, some basic stuff. Reading, alphabet if you want. But then, you follow your interest. And if your interest is medicine, okay, so follow it. Observe. See what is happening. At the beginning, yes, you can go with someone who already has some knowledge. But don't ever stick to anybody. Don't ever stick to one guru. Because every one of us has a different path. we are to have different experiences, learn from them, and improve on the matrix through the experiences. If we copy each other, we are not going anywhere. And one makes mistake, we are all living mistake. This is why debate is extremely important. Exchange of information among those who are in the same path. But science, the way it is, does not accept it. If you don't follow the science as it is preached, well, you are unbeliever. So you're not part of our group. Civilization, we say, oh, it's 8,000 years old. Well, how can that be when we are finding skeletons, hundreds of thousands of years old, and all sizes? So how can that be? Well, hide this, don't show it. No, it's not there, it's not there, don't. In such a world, we can never get to know anything. Just repeating nonsense. And when I talk to people, sometimes just as comments on my videos or articles, and people go, you must know so-and-so because he exactly is talking like you. I don't know. So they say, well, you don't read? Well, unfortunately, I don't have time. And again, I don't want to be sidetracked. I don't want to hear something from somebody else that, okay, maybe it's correct, and then gets trapped into other things that he says or she says because they are correct on this, so they must be correct on the other part. I don't know how many times I was asked, well, you probably know about Ionis, so what do you think about him? I never heard about Ionis until I was asked about it. So I had to watch a couple of videos, read a couple articles, and then, yes, in certain things I agree with him, but in many things I don't. One of them, eating rotten meat. Because no matter what meat you take in, it fresh or aged or rotten, with bacteria, because he said, well, those bacteria then help the gut bacteria and flora to work better. How can that be when strong hydrochloric acid is going to liquefy everything and turn it into mush of amino acids, including those bacteria? So nothing survives to go into intestinal tract. So how they appear over there? Well, they are created there. And we know now that majority of the bacteria didn't come from the outside. They are created in our body, in our gut. And the type of bacteria that you are going to create depends on what you eat. So if you have a wrong fauna, and if they say you need probiotics, that's nonsense. What you need is change diet so you produce that kind of flora that will support your health. Eating probiotics, well, those bacteria will quickly shift to the environment in your body and become bad bacteria. So you don't have any benefits from it. And the whole industry, supplemental industry, is based on it. All nonsense. But how do you get to this knowledge? Not by watching what other people say and what they write. And unfortunately, this is what everybody pride themselves. Well, I have so many years of schooling, and then I read all this and that, and I know now everything. Well, you read a lot of nonsense, and now you know a lot of nonsense that you will be repeating like everybody else. Knowledge comes directly from source, and sometimes it is so drastically different that it's hard to believe it, and you need to make experiments to prove it to yourself. And if you can, well, at least be guided, that because you are never the only one that came up with some idea. It always happens. Many people in a similar time, consciousness came to the level that new information is necessary so we can continue, and information is given. Once when it is given, it's not given to one individual, it's given to all those who are ready. This is why they say, when you are ready, master appears. The master is the idea. So don't be surprised if you ask me, it's obvious that you know about it, you are talking exactly the same. Well, most of them, great majority, I don't know, especially when it comes to quantum physics. Because what I hear, for example, even from Gregg Braden, and he mentions quantum field and particles, to me immediately, bingo! Gregg Braden has a problem. And problem is he was schooled as a scientist. And now the schooling knowledge is now interfering. I knew nothing about quantum field. I'm making it up as I'm going along. But I have learned about sacred geometry. I have learned about spirit and soul, about consciousness. I have learned about the double-slit experiment. But then again, physicists are trying to prove, quantum physicists try to prove how the particle happens, how it's being led to create the image of slit. Well, particle is not led anywhere. We are creating the image because of the fact that we are creators. And what we expect to happen, we are creating to happen. Again, it's something that it's very simple to me, but many physicists will not agree with me because it is hard to prove through experiment. The only way to learn is observation, and then immerse yourself into the field that you want to know more about, and whenever you hit a wall, information is going to be granted. You just ask for it. I wanted to know how I can repair blood circulation. Well, I was told, drink seawater. The idea came. And of course, I didn't trust it, so I had to experiment on it. Same as when it came to cellulose. When all of a sudden, it became very clear to me that this biblical forbidden food can be only one thing. There is only one thing that is strictly separated between animal and plant world, and this is glucose. And it is separated from animals by a shield of cellulose. And if you break the cellulose, then you are making very big harm to the body that absorbs it. Being it animal or human, same thing. And to break the cellulose, the simple way is heat it up. So who was heating the food? Who was cooking were the women. Men were the hunters. And this is why Eve was offering this forbidden food to Adam. Not because she was stupid or she was misled by devil, but simply because she was the one cooking. So, observation and rational thinking. I don't have any studies to show you. Most of the studies I was doing, experiments I was doing myself, I explained what I did to get to the result and why my opinion is the way it is. So I always refer to nature or to some of the experiments I did. But, you know, a lot of people, especially doctors, they are hung up on these final studies. Well, say cholesterol that doesn't cause the problems in circulation. Oh, what study are you using? No study, because all studies are fake. Cholesterol never is a problem. It cannot be the problem because of polarity. Polarity, what is the polarity? Well, we don't know anything because we are not being told about polarity. We are not being told about the electric and electromagnetic nature of our reality and our body, after all. So, don't be surprised and don't assume that I know someone because we talk the same way. Scientists that made an impact on me, one of the biggest impact was from Dr. Lipton. But also I was already thinking about genes, and that genes are actually the triggers. And any change that happens in the body has to first happen on genetic base. So Bruce Lipton, he did the experiments on this. And he just confirmed that what I was thinking, that what was logic to me, that is actually truth. And I love this man. Same, I think highly about Dr. Batmangelli, about him and his study on water. I came to the information differently, but we came to the same information. Now, I knew about him before I wrote the book, but many other things I did not know before. Many of the other scientists, I learned about their work later through people telling me, well, you must know him because, you know, he says the same thing. There are no versions of truth. There is a truth, and then is a lie. And those who seek truth, they will get to it, and then they will say the same thing, maybe slightly differently. So, if you are searching for truth, and then you hear something that is kind of awkward, but it makes sense, well, then think about it and experiment by yourself, and never stick to a same source of information for everything. Get what serves you and move on, because you have different path, you have different experiences. So just take what serves you and keep going. But many people don't do it. They get mesmerized by one individual, and now they stick to everything that this individual does. And if mistake is done, and everybody makes mistake, then they just start repeating the same mistake and preaching the same mistakes. This is not right. So keep moving. Focus on yourself. And this is how we should learn. Forget about schools. As a basic knowledge, okay, but then further development you do by yourself. And then share your findings. And when people see them, it will make sense or it will not make sense. So they will ask you a question or give their interpretation. As long as you can back up your opinion, then there is a chance for conversation and improving on the knowledge. If you just repeat it the way you heard it and you don't understand it because you cannot discuss it, it's meaningless, it's worthless. So don't be surprised. I know very few people that are in the same field as I am, because I'm zeroing on within an observation. Thank you for listening. Love you all.